Hello, my name's Tonya. I'm a personal trainer and a mum of 5. This is my podcast, Live Yourself Better, and it's for busy people just like you. How can you get fit when you're broke? So the cost of living crisis is putting a strain on everyone's finances, and healthy choices can often seem like a luxury. But I have some good news. Getting fit and healthy doesn't have to cost a penny. This podcast will guide you through free resources, tips, and some local initiatives to help you reach your fitness goals, even with a limited budget. So stay tuned. Firstly, I think it's worthwhile exploring the relationship between poverty and health. This is taken from the kingsfund.org.uk. People living in poverty find it harder to live healthy lives, harder to access NHS services, live with greater illness and die earlier than the rest of the population. Poverty and the effect it has on health and on the NHS is not new, though the recent rise in deep poverty, cost of living increases and high pressure on NHS services are all worsening the problem. 6 in 10 of the people in the most deprived areas report that the cost of living squeeze is impacting their health. And all of this is adding financial costs to the NHS. Poverty is a complex problem that will affect different groups in different ways. For example, child poverty is rising particularly sharply, negatively impacting children's health now and throughout their lifespan. There are many compelling reasons why we should be interested in making changes to our health, but we do know that the playing field is not level. And people with access to lower sources of income, people who are living in poverty, people who are living on a budget may find unique challenges in terms of accessing health and wellbeing support. However, it's really important to know that we each have the power to make changes. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money. And, affordability of healthy food is a huge barrier for many people. There are often the offers in the shops and the supermarkets where they're encouraging us to buy the high fat, high salt, high sugar, high calorie food on offer. And yet it seems that the fresh produce can cost more. So that can be a barrier, the perception of that. And the reality as well, there are such places as fresh food deserts where it's very difficult to get fresh produce. People also have time constraints. So you may be juggling work, family commitments, caring responsibilities, and all of these things can make it seem harder to find time to exercise and to meal plan and cook healthy meals. It sometimes just feels easier to grab whatever we can in the moment. There's also an element where people may have a lack of understanding of what healthy eating looks like, or potentially a lack of knowledge of cookery, how to meal plan and how to budget. It's really important to note that this does not necessarily go hand in hand with having a low income. People on low income, people living in poverty, you cannot say they necessarily don't know how to cook. It's a sweeping statement. And the most important thing we have to remember is the challenges are going to be unique for each person, for each family. And the other important thing to remember is that we don't know what poverty looks like. It isn't just one thing or another thing. People can be living what seems to be on the outside relatively comfortable life, but the reality can be actually they are absolutely burdened by increasing mortgage payments and bills. If someone's life suddenly changes, for example, if they get an illness, or if there's a bereavement, or if they end up with some new caring responsibilities, what can happen is people can suddenly find themselves in real financial difficulty. And then, of course, there are others who have always been living that way. So I think it's really important to acknowledge that there is no one-size-fits-all definition, and how much people are struggling will be relative to their own experiences and even relative to the rest of the community. But it's just a good thing to keep in mind that because we don't really know what people's circumstances are, it's even more important that we are inclusive and try to keep in mind that not everybody is going to have the money to be able to afford X, Y, and Z. So whether you're a fitness professional, whether you're working with people and referring to services, then it's always good to know what's available locally, what charities are working locally, and what schemes people can access. So it's good to try and keep on top of that knowledge wherever possible, because we will all be meeting people in life who need this information, and we need it ourselves too. There's certainly been a time in my life recently that I've spoken about on the Radio WM, when I ended up without employment because of childcare challenges, and we were struggling, and so I understand what that feels like, which has given me a real different perspective on it, I think. So without further ado, we shall carry on with the episode. It's worth me saying before I start the episode that whilst I do make reference to a lot of online resources, I am aware that not everybody has the internet, not everybody can get online. So it's always worth, if you have a local library, go and see whether they can give you free internet access, or if you join the library, you can hire out multiple books on health, fitness, wellbeing, recipe books, cookery books. The librarians will be really happy to help you and to signpost you. So there's always a way to get access to the information. There may be leaflets, booklets, printouts, handouts in your local GP surgery, or in your local pharmacy as well. And pharmacies can be a great source of knowledge and information too. Let's start by having a look at healthy eating. You can find the Eat Well guide online, and this is a really good guide to help you to understand how should your diet look, and what are the different food groups, and in what proportions should we be consuming those food groups. You can also get the guide in vegetarian, vegan, South Asian and Caribbean versions. So if you have a look online, you should be able to locate those relatively easily. If you're struggling to afford food for yourself, for your household, you can ask for a referral to a food bank. This can be done by a professional, a charity, an organisation, Citizens Advice. You might wish to use a food pantry. You don't usually need a referral. You just sign up either online or go in person, and then you pay a small amount and get usually around a basket full, maybe more, of food. You go around a little shop and you choose the items for yourself, usually mixed in with some higher value items. There may be fresh fruit and veg available. The food pantry that I used with my children in Aston certainly had all of those things, as well as a friendly, smiling face to welcome us, and a cup of tea or coffee or drink for the kids, biscuits, just making it a pleasant experience. Another option is to look out for food waste. There's actually a really good blog post on oddbox.co.uk. I'll put the link to that in the description of the episode, and I've put all the other links there as well. So this is apps that are helping to reduce food waste, and I can personally vouch for two of them that are mentioned. One is Too Good To Go. I have used that on many occasions, and Olio as well. We have also used that. Although I have not used Olio for food, I have used it for household items, and actually got a child's bookcase on Olio as well, because people list things that they're giving away and you can go and collect them for free. So well worth a look. The blog post also details several other apps to help to minimise food waste, and often with enabling you to rescue fresh food from restaurants, bakeries and cafes. The only thing to be aware of there is you can't necessarily choose what kind of leftovers or the end of the day food that you are getting. So in terms of us making healthy choices, this can be a bit of a gamble. Although in my experience, especially the ones that come from the supermarkets, they generally tended to have a good mix of fresh produce as well as some of the baked goods, which of course we would necessarily aim to eat fewer of, the pastries and the cakes. But it's worth having a look what's local to you and seeing what's out there, because there's a huge movement to stop food waste, and that the food is available locally. So do look around. Now, in terms of fruit and vegetables, I have spoken before about how I now choose to shop at the local fruiterer and greengrocer, because we eat more of the food. The produce is nicer than I get in the supermarket, and we have less waste. If you feel that the fresh produce is out of the reach of your budget, your household budget, then you may be relieved and reassured to know that actually frozen fruit and vegetables can have as good, if not sometimes better, a profile than fresh produce, depending obviously on how it's been stored. And the vitamins and minerals, etc., are kept very much intact where the produce has been flash frozen. And also tinned fruit and vegetables is good, it's fine. We're looking at ways to increase the fruit and vegetables in our diet, and any way that you can do that using produce that is as untouched as it can be, it hasn't had sugars added, it hasn't had fats added to it, then you're winning. And it's also worth knowing, if you have a child of the age of under 4, you as a household can, dependent on income, I think it is, you should be able to get the Healthy Start card, which is around £18 a month towards fruit, vegetables and milk. So that can be really helpful, and you should be able to use that card in the supermarkets as well as in the high street greengrocers too. It's also worth looking at frozen meat, chicken, fish, because you can often buy a larger quantity for less money. And of course, sources of protein such as beans and pulses are readily available, tinned or dried. Just make sure that you read the preparation instructions if you're buying dried pulses. Now, one good way to ensure that you're cooking healthy and balanced meals is to try meal planning for the week if you can. And look, even if you can plan 2 meals or 3 meals a week, which will save you from grabbing something like fast food or a frozen ultra processed food, it's better if you're moving in the direction of cooking food from fresh ingredients or less processed ingredients. If you're moving towards doing that more often, none of this is all or nothing, but where we gain success in the long term is by starting to introduce the changes of habits. So if planning for a whole week, all the meals in a week, feels overwhelming, don't do it that way. Just do it for a few. And the more likely you'll be to stick with it if you feel comfortable with it. You can find some great resources online. I'm just going to read out a couple and I'll put the links again in the description. Jamie's £1 Wonders. Just to be aware, this is not £1 meals. This is what they work out usually around £1 per portion. So it's not the whole meal is £1. There's also Jade's Bytes. And there are some great groups around on social media. I recall some Facebook groups. Feed Your Family for £1 a day or something like that was one of them. Again, I think that was the portions and not the individual meals. But it's always worth having a look out there and seeing, because sometimes in these budget sites, they have some really, really good ideas about what we can do with recipes with very few ingredients and with the cheap ingredients too. So yeah, do have a look around. Now, sometimes people can feel overwhelmed by the idea of cooking. If it's not something you've done much of or had much experience of, then it's always worth looking out to see if there are any charities or organisations locally offering free cookery classes. And again, your local council might be able to help to signpost you, or the Citizens Advice, or even your local GP practice. If you're in there speaking to them, it's worth asking the question, because things and resources do tend to change and vary as to what's available locally. If you're using a food bank or a food pantry, ask the question there as well. Are there any local free cookery courses? Or even the local college, sometimes you can get them as adult education, which can be free to access depending on circumstances. So it's definitely worth looking around, because we know that the benefit is cooking ingredients which are as unprocessed as possible. So if we're moving away from the fast food, from the ultra processed food, from the high sugar, high fat, if we're cooking for ourselves and then we're more in control of what goes in to the dishes, it's always a really good thing. And if you're able to freeze meals, you can always do that. Cook more of one particular meal, or even freeze leftovers and have that on hand to use as a quick meal for another day when perhaps you don't have as much time. So let's move on to exercise. I'll start by talking about some local initiatives, and some organisations cover a wider area of the UK. There are also initiatives happening and schemes happening in different areas, so it's definitely worth having a look on your council website or giving them a call. Or you can ask various healthcare professionals or even local pharmacists. They sometimes know what's going on locally and what's available for free. There may be groups on Facebook. You may find walking groups. You may find running groups. You may find local football clubs that are free initiatives. It's just worth having a look and seeing what's there. Also, different charities will have different funding available. In Birmingham, we have the Be Active scheme. So if you're a Birmingham resident and a council tax payer or have council tax relief, you can sign up for the scheme using ID at one of your local leisure centres. Then you get access to free swimming and gym sessions at various centres at different times of day. There's also the Active Wellbeing Society, put on multiple free fitness events across the region. So do definitely have a look local to you. Also, sometimes things that can complicate exercise for people is having a health condition or multiple health conditions. So do have a look. For example, if you have asthma, have a look on Asthma UK, because you'll see there may be recommendations locally for exercise clubs or groups, or there may just be recommendations for things you need to take into consideration when exercising at home. Same osteoporosis, Parkinson's, cancer, diabetes, any of those conditions or multiple conditions. It's always worth seeking advice from your healthcare professional before you begin a programme of exercise. And you could consider as well, if they have a scheme for GP exercise referral in your area, ask your GP practice about it. Ask them what's available, because you might meet the criteria. Also know that you can refer yourself for a type 2 diabetes prevention programme. There are initiatives running throughout the UK, and you can find the information on the NHS website. And it says, whilst type 1 diabetes cannot be prevented, type 2 diabetes is largely preventable through lifestyle changes. So there are currently 2 million people in England at high risk of developing type 2 diabetes, which is a leading cause of preventable sight loss in people of working age and is a major contributor to kidney failure, heart attack and stroke. The Healthier You NHS Diabetes Prevention Programme, also known as the Healthier You Programme, identifies people at risk of developing type 2 diabetes and refers them onto a 9-month evidence-based lifestyle change programme. I just want to say one of the roles that I have is a locality health coach. So I take sessions for groups of people who have been referred onto the programme or who have self-referred. And what I will do is I will put the link again into the episode description. And this is a programme that is funded by the NHS, so you are able to access the programme for free if you meet the eligibility criteria. Okay, so an organisation called We Are Undefeatable, and this is a movement supporting people with a range of long-term health conditions, developed by 15 leading health and social care charities and backed by expertise, insight and significant national lottery funding from Sport England. So the purpose is to support and encourage finding ways to be active that work for you and your health condition. Then we have Move the Masses. Move the Masses break down barriers to exercise, especially for those most vulnerable. We provide flexible, rewarding volunteering opportunities linked to physical activity and empower people to reclaim their local public spaces as places to exercise. I think that one's more of a localised organisation, but do have a look. And again, I'll put the link in the description for all of these. Another thing you can do is search on Eventbrite, because Eventbrite will often list local free sports events and online events for a wider audience. So definitely have a look there. Sport in Mind is the UK mental health sports charity. It's not affiliated to Mind and not part of the local Mind network. It's independent. It was formed in Reading in 2010, and their mission is to improve the lives of people experiencing mental health problems through sport and physical activity. Now, for young people, we have many sports charities, just a few of them here. One is StreetGames, so providing accessible and attractive sport and physical activity offers for young people. We believe that access to sport and its benefits are a right and not a privilege for young people growing up in low-income, underserved communities. However, opportunities to play sport and be active are all too often either limited or non-existent. There's also Action for Sport, which can also help with access to sports kit, and they're helping to remove barriers. Action for Sport are determined to prevent poverty being a barrier to children and young people playing sport. And it's so important for young people because where they're engaged with sport and physical activity at a younger age and supported in maintaining health, if they can keep going with the sport and activity of some description, of some kind, you know, they can try multiple things if given the opportunity, but we know that will help to improve their health outcomes over the course of a lifespan. There are also multiple resources online when it comes to exercise, and a really good place to start is the NHS website. You can also find on there the fitness studio, which will give information about aerobic, strength and resistance, even Pilates and yoga exercises. And again, it's a free resource, and you know that it will be evidence-based, and you can make sure that you're performing the exercises correctly as per the instructions. There are multiple podcasts and videos out there online. So it's really often a case of exploring what suits you, what are you looking for, and you'll most likely find whether it's a 10-minute workout, whether it's working out in a chair exercises. Again, you can find information on the NHS website on these. But there really is something out there for everybody. So don't be afraid to have a look around and see what you like. You can try lots of different things in the comfort of your own home. Now, of course, one thing that can be a downside of doing it for yourself, doing it for free, is the accountability. And as we know, when people are working one-to-one with a personal trainer or in some kind of program, then it can help to have someone to keep you on track. However, not having money need not be a barrier to accountability. You might wish to set up a group with some friends and you can be accountable to each other. You might wish to use an app, and there are a number of accountability apps. I will not try and list all of them, but there's a brilliant blog post, the 10 best free workout apps tested by experts 2024, and that's on Garage Gym Reviews. So I'll pop the link in the description. There are many that are listed on here. And the good thing about this article is it tells you what each app does and what the free version of each of the apps does. Just to mention a couple here, a free workout app, Nike Training Club. It is completely free. There is no upgrading option, which means that everybody that has that app will be getting access to the same level. You also have things like Map My Run, Map My Walk, Map My Fitness as well is listed here. But do take a closer look at the blog post, because it does give great comparisons and a lot of information and detail about each of the apps, so that you can make something of an informed choice before deciding which one to go for. So that brings us to the end of the episode. Hopefully I've given you some ideas, perhaps some things that you hadn't thought about, and you can go out and try them. Just try. We don't know until we try. And remember that getting healthy is an investment in your future. So I've heard it referred to as a health pension, and I really like that concept, because remember, the things that we do now will have an impact on our future and on our future health. Even the small changes to your diet and exercise routine can make a big difference. Try to avoid thinking in terms of all or nothing. You don't have to be either fully in a diet or out of. What we're trying to do is change habits, live our lives, but do it in a sustainable way that actually improves our health outcomes, rather than looking for quick fixes or looking for fads, and actually focusing on your health and the improvements that you can make there, such as your waist measurement, your hip to waist ratio, your blood pressure, your resting heart rate, body mass index when taken with other measurements. All of these things, even how well you're sleeping, or how out of breath do you get after going up and down the stairs, and how can we improve that over time? Can we get to the point of walking to the local shops, carrying our shopping, or doing whatever's within your own capabilities and abilities? Because we're all different. We will all have different goals. So without further ado, grab some free online resources and offline ones too, and take charge of your health today. I'll see you soon. You can find my website, Live Yourself Better, liveyoubetter.biz. That's live, liveyoubetter.biz. liveyoubetter.biz. See you soon. And I just want to add here that it's not a case of blaming people who experience poverty. It's very clear that governments, systems, the way society functions, it does not provide opportunities to people. And also to say it is not just people in poverty who are experiencing health problems. This is the health of the nation, across the nation, could be improved. And, that's a huge issue right now. And that's why preventative health has become such a key focus. But I just really wanted to emphasise that this is not a case of poverty blaming. It's simply saying, look, if we can make changes, let's be empowered to make them. And that applies to all of us, everyone, in everyone's circumstances, irrespective of the income. But for this particular episode, I am focusing on the challenges faced by people on a low income, living in poverty, when it comes to accessing health, fitness, and well-being.